find it.
We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us on this Monday. Important topic, as you see, we're talking about child sex abuse prevention. The month is April. That's where they try to highlight this as best we can. Sue Fort White is with us this morning. She's the executive director of Our Kids, also along with Jill Howlett, who is a social worker there, and Rob Kerrigan, Metro Police Department, working kind of in the Internet Crimes Against Children unit. And one of the pamphlets you can get at Our Kids is tips for keeping kids safe online. We were just talking during the break. If you're at home and you decide to log on to your computer site and set your age at 13, people will be asking for or sending you pictures in minutes. Meaning they're out there trolling, waiting to see maybe a 13-year-old child pop on, and there's a bunch of sickos out there that want to link up with you right off the bat.
Absolutely. I could set my profile up, and back in the old days, it used to be the Yahoo chat rooms. Some of those have gone away, but there's a ton of sites that offer those chatting kind of services. I could set my profile up as a 13-year-old, and within 2 minutes, somebody's hitting me up. That's either sending me pictures of them, more pictures than I need, or asking for nude images from who they think there is a 13-year-old girl. It doesn't take very long at all.
Now, the moment that's done, that's a crime, but it's hard to track some of that. I mean, that often you can just go on there and get all these reactions, but you don't just trace people like that, right?
Well, once if they connect and they do something illegal like that, they send us some, or they ask for nude pictures from who they think is a minor. There's a state law that covers that for police posing as a minor. It doesn't cover adults posing as a minor. It's a
I see.
Distinctly in the law about law enforcement posing, but we can track it. It just takes a few subpoenas to Comcast or AT&T or some of those to figure out who has the IP address associated to that account, and then I can track it to a particular address.
All right.
Even then, I don't necessarily know who's behind the computer. I can just track it to a house.
Right.
Still have to do some work to try to figure out who it is.
It is difficult to get through. I know when you finally make arrests, you have all your ducks in a row, but you would have to imagine that the people involved at some point are just kind of careless.
Well, that's what now it's so anonymous. I can get online, and people think that they're sort of hidden in that shroud of anonymity, that they're not going to get caught because it's so easy to get on there and find targets.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of us out here that are working it. In Nashville, there's just 2 of us that are assigned full-time to work the Internet Crimes Against Children, and we could use 5 or 10 of us, but the 2 of us are buried for
I imagine. You guys have that's why it's so important then to just work for prevention, because the crimes are going to happen. You guys do the best you can with the resources and the laws the way they're set up, but if it gets that far, I mean, it's too late anyway. Right, you want to go catch them, but you got to prevent it. Sure. I mean, in the warning signs, stuff like that. I was just saying, children troubled by things, having an adult-like knowledge of sex. Yeah, that would be one. Behaving significant change in eating habits the kids have if they're being abused this way, acting young or babyish, running away or skipping school. Yeah, you see cases like that, acting different. Most of that's pretty basic stuff, isn't it?
Right. It is, and I think that those are certainly signs that are appropriate for child development as well. Sometimes kids will have a big growth spurt and eat a whole lot,
sure.
and that's just a sign of
you
growing.
have to see the difference.
You just have to really notice if there's something else going on, and I think your gut reaction as a parent, you just know something's different. And one thing that I also want people to know is where to go for help. I would hate to have a parent say, I didn't know where to go, I didn't know what to do. There are tons of resources available. Our website is a great place to start. If you just need resources on how to talk to your kids, tips to keep them safe online about passwords and protection, and trying to monitor online activity with your children. That's a great place to start. There's all kinds of resources online if you need help for your kids.
Now, there's some parents that are shamed into not wanting to come forward. You think we talk about the kids being that way, but a parent may be discovering it. It'd be a tough balance to obviously love your child, but then you're embarrassed that, God, I allowed this to happen on my watch.
Well, and I think the thing about that is you would never allow it to happen to your children.
Yeah.
So you can't blame yourself for that.
You're right.
But parents do all the time.
They feel that way. Yeah.
Parents do all the time, and I think at that point you have to think, what's best for my child, and what's best for your child is getting them help and making sure that they're okay and stopping that abuse from happening.
Yeah. There's the toll-free number to call Tennessee to report child abuse of any kind. We'll put that number up at the end of the program. But if you call through a line like that, they're just going to ask for a bunch of specific. You can do it anonymously, you were saying, but they're going to want to know what
Name
names,
of the child, if you know their date of birth, if you know where they go to school, address, phone numbers, who they live with, the name of the person who may be abusing them, if you know that. Any information on that child that you could possibly give.
And then who will follow up on that? Is it he's going to be, he can't do it. I mean, is it the PD? Is it going to be DCS? DCS would be the one that would get that complaint and then would have to look into it.
Sure.
We work hand in hand with DCS.
Right.
Yeah.
They respond initially to deal with the victim end of the case. Once they determine if there is a crime that's occurred, then they pass it to us, and we'll work as a joint team. There's state law that creates mandatory teams in every county to work with these things, or every judicial district.
Right.
So normally our cases, they'll deal with a lot of the social work aspects of it. They'll deal with counseling services for the family and interviewing the children, getting forensic interviews set up, getting our kids' exams if need be, the medical stuff. So it's a team effort for us. My part is just the last small cog in that much larger wheel.
Now, the medical part is stuff that will then be used possibly for prosecution, depending on what's discovered, correct?
Right. And the other thing I think is really important about the medical exam at our kids is, you know, I mean, depending on the nature of the sexual contact and the time of the last contact, I mean, almost half of our patients are screened for STDs. Sexually transmitted diseases, and so it's really important for the health of the child. And also, a lot of times sex abuse is not, well, it's not like physical abuse at all. A lot of times there is no injury. You can't tell what's happened, but a lot of times one of the most important things is reassuring the child, you know, and also really helping the parent get beyond it, understand it, and deal with their own shame and guilt, their own anger, their own disbelief, everything else that's going on in the family, and helping them navigate and helping them have hope and you know, and believing in protecting their child.
Yeah. I mean,
one of our partner agencies, the National Children's Alliance, offers a non-offending parenting class, or a parent counseling. So the wife of the suspect that didn't know something was going on, has those feelings of guilt or blaming themselves for why didn't I see that coming. They offer some counseling services for that side of the family as well, because they're sort of a victim as well.
Yeah.
And so what's really amazing is a point, because of the nature of what we deal with, and because the perpetrator is almost always known and trusted. An appointment at our kids is not a 20-minute medical transaction. It can be an hour and a half to 3 or 4 hours, depending on what has happened. You know, is it an emergency? Is it not? And we really depend on our community partners like National Children's Alliance to be providing the ongoing counseling for the child or for the caregiver, the Sexual Assault Center, I mean, you know, Family and Children's Services. So we don't do ongoing counseling. We just do that intensive intervention, and of course the medical evaluation, and then we make referrals based on what we think is best for the child and the family.
Yeah. All right, so and when you're dealing with this at the acute stage, hopefully you get to the child. I'm just curious, all right, so a child goes through something like this, and there's all kinds of circumstances. What are they going to be living with for the rest of their lives?
I think
Can you get past it? Are they going to be messed up forever?
I think with the right interventions like counseling, kids do really well. Kids are resilient. Yeah. It's the adults in their life that end up carrying the burden, but kids are resilient. Kids don't act like what we might see on TV. Kids are kids. And when they come to see us, when we see them much later, they're kids. And that's the wonderful nature. I think it's probably what keeps us being able to do what we do, is kids are kids. And
you can see them get better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, the statistics are staggering on the percentage of people who have been abused in their past. I mean, the girls, like, is it 1 in 4?
Yeah, okay.
1 in 4.
It's crazy, crazy high. So
many of them
people that you're working with
get past it.
Have that same kind of past. And they've been able to move on and become productive adults, and that's what we're hoping to, is to intervene and provide services to give them that bridge to get back to a normal life.
Yeah. I mean, you just wonder how it will be dealt with, like the case with, you know, out of Murray County, you know, when they finally do. It's 5 weeks. And you know, I wonder, you do the physical exam, what if a child comes back and because they've been groomed and they're brainwashed, what if she, you know, if you assume there's sexual contact, they can't find physical evidence of that, and she will not testify to it because she loves the guy. So, I mean, how are you going to charge him with rape?
Sometimes, though, once they get out of, when they're living in that situation and the guy's got that psychological control over, they may not be forthcoming initially, but once they're disconnected from that and you get that separation, they have time to look back on how it's been for the last few months, and they go, you know, I can see it now. I can see where I've been, where he was sort of guiding me or manipulating me, but they can't see it when they're in the middle of it. It's very similar to a domestic violence situation where you have a battered wife that once she gets away from the situation and can get that perspective, she can look back and see all of what's been going on. So many times we may be able to prosecute, it just may not be right away before we're able to get those disclosures and get that cooperation. And that's where our kids and Children's Alliance come in hugely. They play a giant role in that early stages of getting the care we need or getting the evidence that we need to collect on the front end, in hopes that down the line we can build a stronger case.
Take a break on that note, and we come back our final segment with our guests right after this. Stay with us. Well, you guys might end up being involved.